Hey, welcome back to the Amplified Podcast. My name is Jac Carnett, and as usual, I will be your host for today. I'm so glad to have you with us. We have been moving through the story of Exodus, and actually, I was looking at it today. We are coming to the end of Exodus here. Exodus, our journey through it is going to end almost at the same time as 2025 does. So we are in chapter 31 and 32 today, and there are 40 chapters of Exodus. So this particular season only has 5 more episodes, but then we'll go right into Leviticus. And I need to do a fair amount of study about Leviticus beforehand, but we should have all these out on time through New Year's and everything. And I'm so glad to have you with us today. I hope that everybody watching this has an incredible Christmas next week. This should come out the Monday before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to each of you. And then the next one will come out after Christmas, before New Year's. And so today we're going to go through the last bit of information about, God's laws and his rules and really his design for the tabernacle. And then we're going to go into what I kind of alluded to last week. I told a little bit of a spoiler of the story for the story of Exodus with them setting up a golden calf to worship because they thought Moses was dead. And so if you are ready for that, go ahead and open up your Bible to Exodus 31. Of course, I'll be reading out of the Amplified text, but you're more than welcome to read out of your Alabaster Bibles. I highly recommend getting these, especially around Christmas this time of year, and giving them as gifts. I have probably a dozen of them now. And this one, this fat one here, is all of the letters from the book of Romans all the way through Revelation. This is all of the New Testament, save the Gospels and Acts. And so I highly recommend getting them. They're amazing just use as coffee table books. But really the hope is that when you put it out in your house, that when you invite people over, they'll be interested enough to pick it up. And next thing you know, they're reading the Bible. And so more and more Gen Zs coming to know the Word of God. And as they do, I think they're bringing a lot of design and a lot of creativity to how the Bible is printed. And so I highly recommend getting the Alabaster Bible. But today, as always, I'll be reading out of the Amplified text. Just as a recap for the last couple of weeks, we have been going through this. And so if you are listening, that's great. But if you're watching, that's even better. I have a picture of the tabernacle pulled up. This is according to God's design, exactly how he wanted it. So remember that the tabernacle mirrors what is in heaven, but it also has all of these elements that foreshadow the sacrifice of Jesus, which would be, I don't know, let me think, Abraham, about maybe 1,200 years later, maybe 1,200, trying to think, maybe like 1,200 years later, maybe not even that long, but so much of this is foreshadowed to what Jesus is going to do. All of the purple represents the royalty of God and the royalty of Christ, and all of the red represents the sacrifice of Christ's body and the fact that we need unblemished or perfect lambs that are a year old, a very specific age. All has to do with the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross many years from now. And so we talked about how the priests need to always be washing their hands and washing their feet, and this bowl that they have to have specific sacrifices inside the altar out front, and that how the first 2/3 of the tabernacle is what's called the most holy place, the place that is most set apart. And then the back third holds the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of the Testimony, which holds everything's it's like a Russian doll. It's like something within. So the tabernacle, the walls have within it the tabernacle, and that has within it the holy place, and the holy place has within it the Holy of Holies, which is where the Ark of the Covenant, and that holds the law. And so this is God's covenant with his people, and we're about to see how the 10 Commandments are brought down the mountain in this story that we're going to read in just a moment. Up until now, they've been verbalized to the people of Israel. This is the contract you are entering into. If you will obey these 10 things, not commit murder, not have any other gods before me, not worship idols, then I will be your God and you will be my people. I will disperse every nation that goes before you. I will give you every place that you set your foot. You will live in prosperity everywhere you go if you will follow after my commands. And so we talked about it a long time ago that this is not a grant. This is not like the Noah covenant, the Noahic covenant that was a royal grant, which just means that, hey, regardless of how you behave, Noah, I promise I will never flood the earth again the way I did with you. There's no stipulations on Noah's behalf. It has nothing to do with how good or how bad he is later on. God just says in a royal grant, no stipulations, no strings attached, I will never flood the earth again in this way. But the Abrahamic covenant is different. Oh, I'm sorry, the Moses' covenant is different. If you will follow these laws, like if you're writing on a contract, if you're buying a house, if you continue to pay me for this house on these dates, then you get to keep the house. You can build whatever you want. You can add on to it. You can paint the walls. You can knock the whole thing down for all we care. But you have to do these stipulations. It's the same thing with God's covenant. But where a house is more, that's still suzerain vassal. But you have a greater party making a deal with a lesser party. The bank, which has the money, has the control, has the leverage, is meeting with us, which is the lesser party in a more worldly sense. If you're part of the body of Christ, we are always the greater party, but that's beside the point. But this is a suzerain vassal covenant, and that's very specific. That God, I think he would be the suzerain. He is the greater one. He is under no pressure to make this deal. It is not, it is not needed on his behalf. God is coming to them saying, if you will do these things, then I will give you this prosperity. I will give you this land. And so that is the 10 Commandments. And all of that is so, so important. It's so important, this covenant, this marriage covenant between God's people and him, that it is the very, very center of all of their life. That's inside the people of Israel, you have the priesthood. Inside the priesthood, you have Aaron and Moses. Inside of Moses, you have the directions for the tabernacle. Inside the tabernacle, you have the most holy place. Inside the most holy place is the Holy of Holies. Within that is the Ark of the Covenant. Within the Ark of the Covenant is God's written law. This is how we will behave if we're going to be God's people. And it's always great to be God's people. He's going to take care of us better than we could take care of ourselves. And where every other God wants to use and abuse the people, God actually wants to lift them up and save them in the end. And so that's what we've been talking about today. We're going to get kind of a little description of who should be building all of this. We talked a little bit about the importance of having skilled craftsmen, people that this is what they do. They are an embroiderer. This is what they do. They are a metal worker. We're not just grabbing random volunteers. And that kind of trickles down into how we handle church leadership today, that we're not putting just anybody in leadership. The Bible says, study to show yourself approved. We don't just let anybody sing for worship on Sunday. It has to be someone that not only spends time with the Lord and is chosen by him and has been in the secret place, but also has the talent to glorify the Lord properly in a public setting and not be a distraction at the same time. And so God deserves the very, very best. And that goes all the way back to the tabernacle. And we're going to see exactly who the best is today. So if you open up your Bibles to Exodus 31, I know we're already a few minutes in. I've said that several times, but Exodus 31, here's what it says. Now the Lord said to Moses, see, I have called by name Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. Now I didn't look this up, but it's very possible that this is Hur being his grandfather, H-U-R, not son of H-E-R. So you have Bezalel, son of Uri, who's the son of Hur. And I think Hur is the partner, like the the one that helped Moses hold his arms up when the people of Israel were fighting the Amalekites. And so I think it was Moses. Well, I know it was Moses and Hur. I just don't know if it's this specific Hur that he was there to lift Moses's him's arms. So Hur was to help them so that Bezalel, could do great things for the Thee. So a little bit of who's on first there. But Hur, obviously, he stays in favor with the Lord because his son comes along, and then his son is then chosen and actually gifted with the skills to build the tabernacle. I have filled with him the spirits of God in wisdom and skill, in understanding and intelligence, in knowledge, and in all kinds of craftsmanship. That is quite a blessing. And I have to believe that every person in this world has been given some sort of skill on that level. It's just up to us to find out what that is. And so in this case, Bezalel has been given everything he needs to make the most immaculate version of the tabernacle possible, downloaded from the Lord himself. And I used to preach this to my youth kids that, when you go to a museum and you see these incredible works of art, and I was showing them the picture of Michelangelo, Adam, and I think it was Michelangelo's painting on the Sistine Chapel of God the Father and Adam. Their fingers are almost touching, and it's just this most amazing painting. And you also have the statue of Mary holding Jesus, and it's just brilliance in this craftsmanship. And I told them that you also have that level of excellence on the inside of you. It's probably not painting. It's probably not sculpting, but it could be parenting. It could be coaching. It could be, surgery. It could be being a teacher. It could be, creativity in other ways, but you have that level of greatness on the inside of you. And we get to see that the blessings of Hur supporting Moses, coming down to Uri, coming down to Bezalel, have now allowed for this young man to then be the one who builds the tabernacle. To make artistic designs for work in gold and silver and in bronze, and the cutting of stones for settings, in the carving of wood, to work in all kinds of craftsmanship. So this dude was, so my wife and I watch Home Improvement a lot with Tim Allen, who plays Tim Taylor. And his partner is Al Borland, who always knows how to do everything correctly on the show. So this is like the Al Borland of Israel. It's a very niche reference. And behold, I myself have appointed with him Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan, to all who are wise-hearted. I've given the skill and ability to make everything that I've commanded you. So the Lord's not just saying, hey, I'm giving you this impossible task. The Lord is saying, not only am I giving you this incredibly difficult but a very specific task that will lead to great things, but I've also already empowered you with the correct people, with the correct expertise to get this all done. And honestly, if I was going to preach on this, I would say that God's never going to ask you to do something that you couldn't do. That he knows you couldn't do. And in fact, God is not only going to ask you to do difficult things, he's not only going to ask you to do great things, but he's also going to empower you to do it. He's going to give you the right people. If he's called you to build a church, he's going to give you the people that you need to build that church. If he's called you to build a company, he's going to surround you with the right people to help you build that company. If he's called you to build the tabernacle, he has already put in place people that are more than capable of doing this exactly the way God needs it to be done. Wise-hearted, I've given the skill and ability to make everything that I've commanded you. This includes the tent of meeting, the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat, which is the lid that's on the Ark of the Covenant, that is upon it, all the furnishings of the tent. So the bread table and the menorah and the wash basin outside and the altar, a table for the bread, the utensils, the pure gold lampstand and all its utensils, the golden altar and of incense, the bronze altar of burnt offering with all its utensils, the basin and its base, the finely worked garments, the holy garments for Aaron the high priest, and the garments for his sons to minister as priests. So I have given you everything you need to accomplish what I've asked you today. So God is never going to ask us to do something that it would be impossible to do. Maybe it's impossible for us to do it by ourselves, but God is always going to empower us by giving us the correct people, the correct skills, the favor to get done what needs to be done. And the anointing oil and the sweet and fragrant incense for the holy place, they are to make them according to all that I've commanded you. Do this exactly as I've asked you to do it, because I have a greater purpose for this tabernacle than you may realize it. That's kind of what I get when I hear God tell this to Moses. I was listening to Pastor Jonathan Shuttlesworth, and he was preaching out of his church in Texas this week. And he was telling this story about, it wasn't R.W. Shambuk. It was, give me just a second. Okay. A couple minutes went by, but I know it was only a couple seconds for you. So I think I'm getting this right. He was telling a story about Lester Summerall, who started the ministry, Feed the Hungry. And right before the Soviet Union fell in the 1980s, the Lord spoke to him just a word, and the word was Hercules. And Lester Summerall didn't know what that meant. And so he went to a library and looked up the name Hercules. And of course, it had all these this Greek mythology with it. But there was also a military plane, one of the largest ever built, that is called the Hercules. And if he was correct in what he was saying on Sunday, the plane is a C-130, and it's meant for transporting tanks into battle. So you can almost fit like a private jet inside this sucker. It's so huge, so enormous, can carry so much weight. And God was telling him to go and buy one of these because the Soviet Union is about to fall, and he wanted Lester Summerall to be the first pastor to fly into the Soviet Union and deliver food to the starving people there and preach the gospel in the Soviet Union for the first time in over 100 years in that area of Russia. And so this is an impossible task. Not only did, to my knowledge, he not have the money to do it, the U.S. military does not sell C-130s to civilians. It just is not possible. But God made a way. And so God made a way for not only Lester Summerall to hold a congressional hearing so that he could petition the government to buy C-130, but they agreed to it. And they decommissioned one of the older C-130s. He bought it. He had to build a special hangar just to hold this sucker. He filled it with food, and Kellogg's and several other companies gave so much food. To fill this plane up, you have to have a special pilot just to fly it. And when the Soviet Union fell, to my knowledge, he was the first plane or the first preacher to go into the Soviet Union and preach the gospel and pass out food to starving people in over 100 years since the czars. All that to say is that God will often ask us to do things that seem impossible under our own strength, but anything is possible with the Lord, especially if he's the one asking you to do it. And so the old adage, God will never give me anything more than I can handle, is a bunch of bull crap, because God is always going to give us things that are more than we can handle. That's the whole point, because we need God's help. We need his favor. We need his provision. We need his strength to do what he's called us to do. And so the whole idea that God will never give me anything more than I can handle is kind of dumb, because everything God asks me to do is more than I could handle on my own. And so that's why he's the one who says, I'll never leave, I'll never forsake you. He helps us do all these things. He helps us build a tabernacle. He helps us buy decommissioned C-130 from the United States Congress. He asks us to move across the country to California. And so we can do all things through the Lord if it's what he's asking us to do. So that's a long rabbit trail to say, man, pray and find out what the Lord has for you to do. And then don't doubt that you can do it with his help. Okay, let's go into verse 12, chapter 31. Now we're going to move on to the last part of this these instructions before we get into the narrative of the golden calf. And the Lord said to Moses, "But as for you, say to the Israelites, you shall most certainly observe my Sabbaths, For it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, so that you may know without any doubt and acknowledge that I am the Lord who sanctifies you and sets you apart from myself. So where every other nation in the world worked 7 days a week and did not have anything distinguishing about them, the Lord was actually choosing not more work, not better work, not a different kind of work. He was choosing to give his people a day off, i.e. no work, every single week on the same day, and that would be what would set them apart. And I heard Dennis Prager say a long time ago that the Sabbath has done a lot more to preserve Israel than Israel has done to preserve the Sabbath, meaning that this gift from the Lord, a day off every single week, has done more to restore, more to build up the health, more to preserve Israel than all the effort combined that Israel has put into actually observing the Sabbath. And so God's his gift to his people and what would sanctify them, i.e. set them apart, is that one day out of every 7 days, they were going to take the day off. Take the day off. And God's very, very serious about this, because this is not only for them to rest every single week, but this is also a sign to all the other nations that the Hebrews, the Israelites, those that follow after Yahweh, are different. Therefore, you shall keep the Sabbath, for it is holy to you. It's set apart. It's different. It's not like the other 6 days. Everyone who profanes it must be put to death, for whoever does work on the Sabbath from among his people, on the Sabbath, that person shall be cut off from among his people, excluding him from the atonement made for them. For 6 days, work may be done, but the seventh day, the Sabbath, is the Sabbath of complete rest, sacred to the Lord. Whoever does work on the Sabbath day must be put to death. Now, again, I don't know of any record of anyone being put to death for not observing the Sabbath, because millions of people were not going to observe the Sabbath over the next 1,200 years until Jesus came along, and they were not all put to death. And to my knowledge, I don't know if any of them were put to death. The idea is to show, I think God was serious when he said that, but the idea is also to show is that as serious as I take murder, that is how serious I take you observing the Sabbath and taking the day off. That he's trying to show that the same level of care, concern, and gravity to the crime of killing someone unlawfully is what God takes umbrage toward. Trying to think of better words, but like takes offense to not observing the Sabbath and taking a day off every week. So the Israelites shall observe the Sabbath to celebrate the Sabbath throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. This will be from now until always. It is a sign between me and the Israelites forever. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he ceased and was refreshed. Now the problem became that you had people that either were not observing the Sabbath at all on one side, but you also had the Pharisees and the Sadducees by the time Jesus came along that were taking the Sabbath too far, to where now the Sabbath was a burden to the people. All the things that they were not allowed to do according to tradition. I think the Lord meant more for, hey, you're not supposed to be plowing the fields this week. Your animals are not supposed to be plowing the field. Your slaves are not supposed to be doing all their normal chores on the seventh day. You're supposed to rest. But the Pharisees, the Sadducees were taking things too far. You're not even supposed to spit on the Sabbath. Otherwise, you're guilty. You're guilty. You're guilty. You're not supposed to, pick a berry off of a bush as you're walking by, because that's agriculture and that's working. That it became too much for the people. And so I think God's gift is a lot more, well, it's meant for us. Jesus said, hopefully I get this right, the Sabbath was created for man, not man for the Sabbath. And so it was given to us as a gift, not as people given a gift to the Sabbath. And eventually Jesus says, I am the Sabbath. I am what gives you rest. And now we have Jesus and we have a day off. So we get the best of both worlds. When he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave Moses the 2 tablets of the testimony. 2 tablets of the testimony. Hold on. Let me draw this better. 2 tablets of the testimony. 1. This is how they're always depicted in movies and stuff. 1, 2. He gave to Moses the 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone written with the finger of God. So we have the 10 commandments written on these 2 stones. Up until now, it's been a verbal covenant, but now it is written in stone because that is how contracts were meant to be done back in the day. So even today, we still write contracts on paper and everything. So they're written on the front and the back. You're holding 2 stones that the finger of God himself wrote into stone. These are the most priceless pieces of rock in the world at this moment. And it's very funny what Moses does to them. Now, when the people saw, this is chapter 32, let's go ahead and move on. Now, when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, they gathered together before Aaron and said to him, "Come, make for us a god who will go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Now, let's remember, okay? You have the mountain of the Lord, okay? And all the people are down here at the bottom of the mountain. Then going up the mountain, Joshua is somewhere about right here. He stayed about halfway up the mountain. But then Moses goes up the rest of the mountain. And he's up here with the Lord, who is in a big cloud. And he's there for 40 days. 40 days, 40 nights. To our knowledge, he did not eat. To my knowledge, he did not eat or drink. So it's supernatural that he's still alive. Supernatural, possibly that even Joshua was still alive, unless he brought food with him. But all the people down here, they think that, okay, let's give him a few days. I'm sure he'll be back. Okay, it's been a week. Now it's been 2 weeks. Now it's been 3 weeks. Moses is still gone. It's been 4 weeks. It's been 5 weeks. It's been 35 days. 5 weeks, it's been over a month, and Moses is still not back. I know for a fact he did not bring any weapons up there with him, and he did not bring that much food with him, so he's got to be dead by now. It's very interesting that they don't say our leader Moses. They kind of say it like, that this Moses, this so-called leader of Israel, he's gone. The man who brought us out from the land of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him, so Aaron, his brother, we want you to make for us a god. And that just kind of shows you the state that these Israelites are in, that they've lived in bondage for so long. They've lived among the idolatry and the horrific nature of, the Egyptians for so long that even though they saw God decimate the gods of Egypt, everything that they had believed in for 250 years possibly, and they watched God himself lead them in a pillar of fire, pillar of smoke out of Egypt, split the Red Sea, deliver them from all their enemies. They think that they can now just create another calf idol, worship it, perform the right ceremonies, and that is now their God. And so it's completely turned around. It's so sadistic on the people's part towards God. It's repulsive, and we're going to see it's going to get even worse from here on out. So Aaron replied to them, "Take off the gold rings that are in your ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. Now, this kind of tells you that they didn't wait till day 40 to start doing this. Dennis Prager talks about this, that possibly this was Aaron's idea of maybe slowing them down, maybe delaying them, giving Moses a little bit more time to come down the mountain, because Aaron said, okay, if you want me to go and cast an idol for you, you want me to make a god for you, why don't you go get all the gold, all of your wives' jewelry, all of your angsty teenage son, the gold ring that he's got in his left ear, why don't you go get that from him? Once you wrestle all the jewelry out of the wives of your daughters and your mothers and your wives and your daughters, and I already said that, your mothers and your sons, once you get all that together, which fat chance that's going to happen, you bring it back to me. Well, apparently Israel was of one mind at this moment all of a sudden, because they They apparently gave up everything that they needed to cast this idol. And also, I don't think this is something that happens overnight. Making an idol like this, I think if I'm right, you have to chisel it out of wood. Then you have to use wood to place that into the sand. The sand has then to form around the wood. Then you have to take that back apart. So you have to take the wood out. Then you have to boil all the gold and melt it down, pour it in. Then you have to let it cool. It takes more than 15 minutes to make it. And so I think this was Aaron's way of, stalling a little bit on behalf of Moses. I think the Promised Land TV show on YouTube does a good job of kind of showing that Aaron's at his wit's end by this time. He is so overwhelmed by the people of Israel. They're bringing all of their problems to him. You have hundreds of thousands of issues, all being brought to Aaron and her. And I think he's given up. And so he's like, I'm going to try to buy Moses some time, but these people are out of control. So all the people took off the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. Verse 4, he took the gold from their hands and fashioned it with an engraving tool and made it into a molten calf. This is a small cow. And they said, this is your God, O Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Now that is blasphemy. I would even go as far as to say that this might be a good example of blasphemy of the Holy Spirit, the unforgivable sin that you have taken something that you 100% know for a fact was Yahweh. He's the one that brought you up from the land of Egypt. And now you have attributed that same power now to a calf and said that the calf is actually Yahweh, when the calf has ears but cannot hear, has eyes but cannot see, and you are attributing that which belongs to the Lord to that which is evil. And I think that's a great example of blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. And I've had youth kids and different friends ask me about that. And honestly, I would say if you are a faithful Christian, if you're even a moderate Christian, I don't even think it's possible for you to blaspheme the Holy Spirit in this way. I think this requires such a deception that I think it's years in the making to get to this point where you so wholeheartedly know that this power, this ability, this healing, this miraculous sign belongs to the Lord, and then you wholeheartedly attribute it publicly to that which is evil. And I think that's pretty hard to do, and nobody does it on accident. This is very intentional. So now in verse 5, now when Aaron saw the molten calf, he built an altar for it. So Aaron's not helping the situation at this point. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord. Now Aaron didn't say, this is your God. The people said, this is your God. Maybe Aaron's trying to appease the people. People are less likely to argue and be upset with him if they're full. So maybe let's have a meal together. So they got up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. Then the people sat down to eat and drink and got up to play. Now, to my knowledge, this is the only time in the Bible, at least that I've found, where it says play, shamefully without moral restraint. This is more than just laughing and having a good time in front of this idol. The idea of a meal was reminiscent of a covenant that we are now breaking bread in the presence of this idol. Not a good start at all. The fact that they're burning offerings and peace offerings, they're doing what they were supposed to do for the Lord. They're doing for this false idol and this false calf. Again, not a step in the right direction. But when you get into the Hebrew of this text, when it says that they got up to play, this was more than just a game of tag. This was them bringing with them the traditions of fertility, God worship, to now this moment in front of God's mountain. That this is not just them playing Monopoly and like telling old stories. This is kind of more of like a rave. This is erotic. This is really it's fornication, and it's everything evil about idol worship happening now in front of this idol. This is if you're a child, maybe plug your ears, but one commentary I read is like, this is orgiastic. This is fornication at the highest level with this false god itself, and complete and total worship of this false god. It's only been 40 days. And if we give them the benefit of the doubt, that maybe they made it 2 weeks without getting into this kind of stuff, okay, then it's really only been 26 days, roughly 3 or 4 weeks since we're talking about the time from Thanksgiving to Christmas. They have lost their ever-loving minds in front of this altar, and they're attributing that which belongs to the Lord to this idol. And it's bad news. And they know it's not like they don't know that this is wrong either. They know for a fact this is wrong, because Moses in Exodus 20 communicated to them that they shall have no other gods. They're not to make false idols. They're not to commit adultery. They're not to bring false testimony. They're attributing that which belongs to the Lord to this God. They're lying. They've broken, half a dozen commandments just in this one evening alone. And they're really going nuts at this point. So that's the context that we're looking at when Joshua and Moses roll back onto the scene. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once, for your people." It's very funny that, you're going to see back and forth where, depending if God or Moses is upset with the people, they're going to say, "Your people are down there doing this." And it's like when I'm really annoyed with my dog, I say, "Your dog needs to go outside." Your people, whom you brought up from the land of Egypt. This is God speaking to Moses. The people you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have quickly turned aside from the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molten calf and have worshipped it, sacrificed to it, and said, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out from the land of Egypt." And I like to think that God is like, that he's moving up in levels of seriousness as he's explaining this. Not only did they make a golden calf, but worse than that, they've worshipped it. Worse than that, they've sacrificed to it. And worse than that, they've attributed what I did for them to this calf. The Lord said to Moses, "I've seen this people. Behold, they are stiff-necked. They are a stubborn and rebellious people. Now, therefore," God says basically, he says, "Let me alone," but God says, "Now therefore, leave me alone and don't interfere, so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them, and I will make your descendants a great nation." So God's saying, back up right now. Don't interfere, because I'm about to wipe them out and I'm going to start over with you. It's just going to be you and me. I got time. I have hundreds of years to build a new family, a new nation that's going to worship me, that is going to abide by this covenant, this marriage covenant with me, and I'll start over with you. But Moses appeased and entreated and spoke to the Lord his God and said, "Lord, why does your anger burn against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand?" So Moses is essentially saying, why are you so upset about this? Possibly it's because he's going, you knew that this was going to happen. You knew the kind of people that you were dealing with. Obviously, you have every right to be angry, but why are you so angry? You knew this was going to happen. Why should the Egyptians? And so he gives a bit of logic to this, why God should not wipe out the Israelites. Why should the Egyptians say with evil intent, their God brought them out to kill them in the mountains and destroy them from the face of the earth? And he's saying, if you wipe us all out, the Egyptians are just going to get to point and taunt us and say, their God took him out of Egypt just to wipe him out in the desert. We won in the end. So Moses says, turn away from your burning anger. Change your mind about harming your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, your servants, to whom you swore an oath by yourself, and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heavens, and all this land which I have spoken I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. So I don't think, even if God had gone through with this, I don't think he would have been breaking his own covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because God has all the time in the world to, raise up a nation through Moses, who is still in the line of these three boys. and still give them this land and the inheritance just a few more years down the road. But Moses is, as kind of my grandfather would say, is holding God's feet to the fire, that this is what you said. So the Lord changed his mind. It's amazing that, God is not aloof. He is not, he is unchanging in his nature, in his character, in his goodness. He is unchanging. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. But he still has free will in the mind of his own. He is the great mind, obviously, with a capital M. And just as you and I are allowed to change our minds, God is allowed to do the same. And I think we see God change his mind even all the way back in Genesis 6, where God says that he regretted creating man because they had become so wicked and they grieved his heart to such a degree. So this is not a God who is feelingsless. This is not a God who is aloof. This is not a God who is beyond emotion. This is a God who feels, a God who is hurt, a God who sings, a God who is joyful, a God who is in the muck and the mire of his people. Then Moses turned and went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets from the mountain, or from the testimony in his hand. So the 10 Commandments. Tablets that were written on both sides. They were written on one side and the other. I don't know why it says it twice. The tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. So as far as we know, God not only wrote on these tablets, but he cut them out of the hill himself and gave them to Moses. It could have been Jesus himself giving them to him. Now, when apparently Joshua is high enough up the mountain that he can't see or hear what's going on at the bottom. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, "There's the sound of a battle at the camp, that we must be at war." But Moses said, "It is not the cry of victory. It's not the cry of defeat, but I hear the sound of singing." They are they are involved in this ritualized worship and dancing and suggestive twirling. And I know that sounds weird, but I guess it's just you had to be there, but this is not a good sound that Joshua is hearing. And soon he approached the camp and he saw the calf and the dancing. Moses' anger burned, and he threw the tablets from his hand and smashed them at the foot of the mountain. And I think this is indicative of you have broken the covenants. So this is a physical representation of you made a covenant with the Lord and you have broken it today. It is destroyed. Then Moses took the calf they had made and burned it in the fire, ground it to a powder, scattered it on the surface of the water, and made the Israelites drink it. Now, this is a very odd thing to do. Why not just drop kick it? I don't know. But you have to think, I don't know if it was Dennis Prager, it was possibly Ben Shapiro on the Exodus podcast talking about this, that you have animals that are below humans and humans that are below, let's say, God in heaven. What the people here had done is they had reversed the order of things, where they had made animals to be God, and they had treated God as if he was nothing but an animal that serves them. And so by worshiping an animal instead of eating it, they had taken it out of its rightful place and put it in the wrong place. And so what Moses does is he brings the animal, the calf, back to its rightful place, and he says, we worship God, we eat animals. We do not worship animals and eat God. We worship God and eat animals. So for that reason, I'm going to make you eat this altar. I'm going to make you eat this calf that you have created. You're going to take within you the sin and the sickness that is this depraved thing that you've done here today. I know we're talking about like a big concept here, but this is more than just them having a rave. This has spiritual and covenant implications. This has contract, marriage, certificate implications in this story. Then Moses said to Aaron, "What did this people do to you that you have brought so great a sin on them? How did things get this bad?" That's what Moses is saying. Aaron said, "Do not let the anger of my Lord burn. You know the people yourself, and they are prone to evil." Like, hey, don't shoot the messenger. Don't be mad at me. You know how stubborn these people are. If anybody should understand this moment better than anybody, it's you. And that's what he's saying to him. You know the people yourself, for they are prone to evil. For they said to me, this is Aaron speaking to Moses, "Make us a God who will go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what's become of him. They all thought you were dead. And so they came to me. They're probably going to stone me if I didn't do something. And they made me make this idol." And then Aaron says the funniest thing. "I said to them, let whoever has gold jewelry take it off. So they gave it to me. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf." Okay. Aaron is doing everything. I think I read a commentary today that said no one in such high a position has ever tried to dodge responsibility to this degree since Aaron himself. Like, Aaron is a central figure in this sin that Israel has committed, and yet he is trying to dodge all grief, all responsibility from Moses and God at this moment. "Oh, I just threw it in there and this calf came out." No, Moses ain't no dummy, okay? Now, when Moses saw the people were out of control, for Aaron had let them get out of control to the point of being an object of mockery among their enemies. I was reading a commentary today as well that talked about this idea of mockery. This is not just being disorganized, that this has the idea of nakedness, that the people are running around naked. This is a Lord of the Flies moment. That they have if anybody were to see us right now, if anybody's passing by and they're looking at us, this is not a good look for us. Then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, "Whoever is on the Lord's side, come to me. And all the sons of Levi," which would later be the priestly tribe, "gathered together to him." So you have Moses here at the gate. Moses is at the gate, okay? You have all of Israel doing all kinds of weird stuff over here. And Moses says, anybody who does not agree with what's going on, you better get over here on my side. So all the Levites, they all come around and they rally up with Moses. He said to them, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, every man strap his sword on his thigh, go back and forth from gate to gate throughout the camp, and every man kill his brother, every man his friend, and every man his neighbor, all who continue this pagan worship." So again, I was reading a commentary that this is not language of just like random killing of like anybody in arm's distance dies. This is much more the idea that you have Moses saying anybody that doesn't agree with this, get on this side. And then you have people within Israel, apparently 3,000, as we'll read in a moment, 3,000 that not only did not stop worshiping this Lord, this God, but they were actually agitated, and they were agitated with Moses, that they refused to stop worshiping this God, that they were refusing to stop this sinful moment, that they were against Moses as much as possible. And so this is not just them running around killing at random, like, I only worship for 5 minutes, or like, I was just watching. No. This is the people who are actively opposing God, opposing Moses, opposing the real Lord that delivered him out, and they wanted the calf. And so the Levites come behind Moses, and Moses says, they've brought this sin upon their heads. They broke the covenant. They know how serious this is. If they are not with us, they are against us. They are a foreign enemy. So go and wipe them out. The sons of Levi did as Moses instructed. About 3,000 of the men of Israel were killed that day. Then Moses said to the Levites, dedicate yourselves today to the Lord, for each man has been against his own son, his own brother, in his attempt to escape execution, so that he may restore and bestow his blessing to you on this day. So, honestly, I don't know. It's very possible that you may have had fathers who are Levites who supported the Lord, and sons who were caught up in this horrific moment that did not want to stop worshiping this calf. And maybe they did have to kill their own son. But that's the seriousness of this crime. That you are not going to be Egypt. You were kept in slavery by these people for 250, 400 years. You are not going to bring with them their customs, their ideas, their gods, their pagan nature into the land that I'm going to give you. And I think it was also, I think God always knew that this generation was going to be too stubborn to bring into the promised land, that it was always going to have to be their sons and daughters. But I think this moment really sealed the deal that this people that knew slavery was not going to be able to handle the freedom that God wanted to give them, because they were just going to fall back into idolatry. And often, and here it also says his brother, his sons. I don't think in every case it was literally go find your brother. I think it was like your fellow Israelite, your brother Israelite, that kind of thing. This is a very serious chapter. Then the next day Moses said to the people, you have committed a great sin. Now I will go up to the Lord, and perhaps I can make an atonement for your sin. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, oh, these people have committed a great sin against you, have made themselves a god of gold. Yet now, if you will, forgive them their sin, and if not, please blot me out of your book which you have written. Kill me. It's the idea that it's the same idea that Paul states in I think it was in Hebrews, where these boys are saying, I know that these people, your people, messed up bad. So even if you have to kill me, even if I have to take their place, if I have to be a substitute, if I have to bear the punishment so that they can receive forgiveness, so that they can move on, so that things can be better later on, I'm willing to do that. That's what Paul was saying about the people of Israel. That's, God, if you have to separate me out from them so that I can take their punishment, God, I'll do it. And this is a type and a foreshadow of Jesus later on, that this is not Moses' fault. Moses didn't do any of this. He's not guilty. Jesus was not guilty. And we talked about this on Sunday here at church, that he was the substitute for us, that sat on death row for you and for me when he had done nothing wrong. But Moses was not the man to do that. Jesus was the man to do that. So God turns Moses down. The Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book and not you. In other words, like, you're not the one to substitute. My son will come later on. God doesn't say that here, but each man has to pay for his own sins. That's the idea, that you have to pay for, you have to bear the consequences. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it. But now go, lead the people to the place where I have told you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I punish, I will punish them for their sin. So the Lord struck the people with a plague because of what they had done with the calf which Aaron had made for them. So we're going to talk about this in the next couple chapters. The next couple chapters are fascinating. They'll probably be longer episodes, the next one or two, because there's so much to unpack in the next couple chapters, because it's mostly narrative. And just like today, there's a lot to talk about. But God is telling him, even right before this chapter ends, because of the sin today, I'm not going to go with you. I cannot be among these people. Perhaps it's God saying, if I'm around these people anymore, I may wipe them out. And I don't want to do that. But these people are so stubborn, so stiff-necked, so idolatrous that I can't be in the same room with them. But I will send my angel. You'll still do well. but I'm not going with you anymore. And then the Lord struck the people with a plague, and from what I read, 23,000. This is including the 3,000 that died from the Levites. 23,000 died from either the sword or this plague. That's possibly those that drank the water with the gold in it. They took the sin inside themselves, and therefore that sin gave birth to sickness and plague. Either way, this was the natural response for idolatry. And I talked about it from the book of Romans, Romans chapter 1 a couple weeks ago, that, it goes like this. And I explained this on Sunday, that it begins with idolatry. Idolatry leads to, what did I say? Idolatry leads to, hold on, let me look it up. Okay, I got it right. So we see the same progression in Romans 1 that we see in this story in Exodus. That it begins with removing God from his place. And that's exactly what they did. This Moses guy, he's gone. We don't like his God anymore. We want an idol. Removing God from his place leads to idolatry. And idolatry inevitably leads to perversion. Every kind of perversion, greed, slander, thievery, lying, homosexuality, whole 9 yards. But if we can keep God in his place, then we won't fall into the sin of idolatry, and we won't fall into what idolatry leads to. Because that's exactly what happened. They took God out of his place. Moses is gone. We don't want his God anymore. Then we attributed all the things that were good about God to this idol. And then that idol immediately led us into perversion and this ritualized celebration of a false God. And in the United States and in the Western world, we don't really make idols like this, but we can often put ourselves as the idol. That we're like the Israelites that say, I don't really believe in this God anymore. I'm going to do what I want to do. And now that I think about it, everything great in my life has been as a result of my decision. And I'm the one that got me this far. And that idea of like putting ourselves in God's place, making ourselves the idol, then leads us down into every bit of perversion, greed, slander, and all the sins that they were guilty of in Romans, that they're guilty of in this story that we see around us today. But if we can keep God in his place, then we won't fall into that trap. So quite a story. And this is why I love the book of Exodus so much, because it's so rich with these narratives that we can apply to our lives, that we can see the mistakes they made, that we can learn from. Also, it's just a wildly interesting story, everything Moses has to put up with. And so thank you so much for listening to the Amplified podcast today. Please tune in next week. We're going to have some great discussion next week for Exodus 33 and 34. And a lot of this is setting us up for Leviticus. And I know you've thought Leviticus was boring up until now, but the way we go through it, it will not be boring. And so glad to have you with us today, man. Share this podcast with your friends. Tell them about it. If you have Instagram or Facebook, maybe take this one from YouTube or Spotify. Take a screenshot. You can share it from Spotify. Put it on your story. We want more people to know about the gospel. Like, subscribe, all the things. Hit the notification bell, and we're going to see Jesus take the world by storm. And so thank you so much for listening. This has been the Amplified Podcast. We'll see you next week.